Hello, everyone. This is Eleanor Rigby. I was looking at this old, yellowed receipt from a grocery store in October of 1962 today, and it immediately reminded me of the day my marriage almost ended. It was a time when the entire world felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for the sky to fall. If I hadn't learned the lesson I am about to share with you, I would have lost everything that truly mattered, long before any bomb could ever drop. Before I tell you this story, please subscribe. I want to pass this wisdom down before I'm gone, so you don't make the same mistakes I did when the weight of the world feels too heavy to bear. I am 84 years old now. Most days I sit in my armchair by the window and I watch the news scrolling across the television screen. I see the headlines about Iran, about the heartbreaking tragedies in Israel, about our own country, America, being drawn into a web of conflict. And I tell you honestly, I'm 84 years old, and in my life I will not see this type of war between Iran, Israel, America ever again. This modern conflict is a constant, unrelenting digital war of anxiety that follows you right into your bedroom. And as I watch young couples today trying to build a life in the shadow of this constant global dread, my heart physically aches because I remember exactly what that kind of fear nearly did to my husband, Arthur, and me. Young people today might not understand this, but when the world outside is terrified, that terror comes to sleep in your bed. When we got married in 1960, we didn't have a penny to our names. We lived in a tiny, drafty apartment in Chicago. We were surviving, but just barely. And then the Cuban Missile Crisis hit. Just like today's geopolitical tensions, it felt like the world was teetering on a razor's edge. We were glued to our tiny black and white television, watching lines being drawn across oceans. The fear became a living, breathing entity in our kitchen. And what did we do with that overwhelming existential fear? We turned it on each other. It wasn't easy. In fact, it was the hardest year of my life. The fear made us short-tempered and cruel. I remember one specific evening. Arthur had come home late from the factory, exhausted, carrying a newspaper he had bought on the corner. I had spent the entire afternoon listening to terrifying radio broadcasts and wondering if my baby would survive the month. When Arthur walked through the door, instead of greeting him with relief, I snapped. I yelled at him for spending 50 cents on that newspaper. Why are you wasting our money reading about the end of the world when we can't even afford winter coats? I screamed. I berated him for not somehow saving us from a world that was falling apart. Arthur just stood there in the doorway. I can still hear his voice. It was terribly quiet. He dropped his metal lunchbox on the linoleum floor, looked at me with a profound exhaustion in his eyes, and said, "Eleanor, I'm just trying to figure out if I need to go to work tomorrow or if I need to stay home and hold you." Think about that. That single sentence broke me. It shattered the armor I had built around my fear. I realized that while the leaders of the world were pointing weapons at each other across oceans, I was pointing weapons at my own husband across our kitchen table. Let me tell you the truth. Fear is the absolute greatest enemy of love. When you are terrified of the future, you clench your fists to protect yourself. And you cannot hold someone's hand when your fists are clenched tight. That night, sitting on our cold kitchen floor, Arthur and I made a solemn pact. We decided that no matter what happened in Washington, Moscow, or the Middle East, our home would be a sanctuary. We would never let the violence and panic of the world dictate the temperature of our marriage again. And now, today, I see the globe spinning out of control once more. The politicians use different maps now, but the fear they peddle is exactly the same. You have to understand this. You cannot control the geopolitical landscape. You cannot control what armies do, but you absolutely, unconditionally control how you treat the person sitting across the dinner table from you tonight. Love isn't just a feeling you have, it's a decision you make every morning. I look at modern dating and I see young people so consumed by the global narrative and endless scrolling of tragedy that they forget the quiet power of a shared cup of coffee. A marriage is built in the quiet, mundane moments between the crises. We were not built to carry the weight of the entire globe on our shoulders. When you try to process the tragedies of nations thousands of miles away while simultaneously trying to be a loving spouse, you will empty your emotional reserves. Experience has taught me that the couples who survive are the ones who learn to lock the door against the chaos. They practiced gentle patience when they were exhausted, and above all, they practiced unshakable loyalty. Loyalty is about being a safe harbor in a violent storm. My late husband used to say to me, Eleanor, the world will always find a reason to end. Our job is to find a reason to begin again every single day. When you let the news and the wars of the world infiltrate your heart, you become bitter and harsh, and a harsh heart cannot nurture a marriage. You must stand guard at the door of your relationship and refuse to let them in. World's cruelty walk in with muddy boots. I promise you, when you reach my age, you will not care about the viral headlines or the geopolitical shifts. You will only care about whose hand you are holding. The wars will always rage, but the love you cultivate in your own living room is the only true peace you will ever know. So, to the young couple watching this, put the devices down. Give each other grace. The world is hard enough. Do not make it harder for each other. Build your fortress. Thanks for listening to An Old Soul. Subscribe, share this with someone you love, and cherish them while they are here.